So we're here for another episode of Spartan Code. I am Frank Castle. I have my guest here, Captain Kelly of Big Blue. Going to go into a little segue with like how this all ties into the book Spartan Code. Well, a lot of people think Spartan as a warrior, but Spartan is mainly just sparse, like you don't have a lot. And I was part of the Second Brigade Spartans for the push to Baghdad, and it's funny to me that wherever I go and I meet other folks, and it's like, oh, you were military too, and it's like we start talking about similarities. And I remember the day I actually met Big Blue, the boat, before I met Captain Kelly. And I'll explain this to you because we were driving over the bridge, the Massillina Bayou Bridge, and I looked over and I about jumped out of the car to the marina. I was like, that's a 36-foot Newton. What is that doing here, right in the bayou, like half a mile from my house? And I'm like, I can't make stuff up like this. It was a beautiful dive boat. So I started researching and looking, and I booked a trip. And, I love diving. It's been a passion of mine. It's one of the things that after I got out of the active duty military in '05 and moved here in '06, that kept me here, made me part of this community and the dive community. And Kelly is part of all that. And welcome, and please introduce yourself to our Spartaners.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. Yeah, I'm Captain Kelly. With Big Blue Dive Boat here in Panama City. The interesting thing with Big Blues, it's kind of got a little bit of a history that's very rich with divers. We always say it was a boat that was built by divers for the divers. Years ago, we actually I was stationed out in Nellis Air Force Base out in Las Vegas, and a good friend of mine lived out in Long Beach, California. Well, actually in Los Angeles, and he used to come out with me all the time diving in Lake Mead. And he's like, hey, man, I want to build a dive boat. And I was like, great, let's build a dive boat. And then he was like, what would be a good platform? And he was more thinking on the kind of like the private side, small boat and so on. Yeah. I was like, go with the 305 Boston Weather Conquest, do that. It'd be a great boat to do. And he's like, okay, let's go get one. So we got this Conquest, brought to Vegas, outfitted for diving, took it over to Long Beach, put it in a slip. And they loved it. They were like, oh, this is great. But then they started running into a lot of like limiting factors because, we all did a bunch of technical diving. So when you've got, multiple tanks on the boat and deco bottles and rebreathers and DPVs and stuff, the deck became very, very small very quickly. So he ended up selling that boat. And then he says, hey, man, I want to build another boat. He's like, but I want to build a bigger boat. What do you recommend? And I was like, 36 Newton. My history with diving was actually started here in Panama City.
And I love this story too.
I learned how to dive back in 2007, and right around that same time frame is when the Steel Slinger with Pat. That he was getting his boat, and I loved diving off that boat. Like that was like my dream boat.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time diving off of it. I was like, man, this thing it's just perfect. It's the perfect platform. So I had to steal some of his ideas when it came to Big Blue. And so that was the first thing that popped to mind. It was like, 36 Newton, perfect. Go with that. So we reached out to Newton and we started the design aspects and so on with Big Blue, and Brian and Donald Newton, the owner. We were kind of working with them. Of course, they presented us with a couple different options. They said, okay, you've got your good, better, and best, and of course, there's money involved with options and so on. And the buddy of mine that we built the boat with, Francesco Camelli and I, we were like, yeah, none of those were going to work. Let's go ahead and just do, scrap all those. Let's just do this. And of course, Donald Newton's like, oh, okay, all right, then this will work, So we started doing like design floor plans, and we were like, we want to put a compressor on there. We want to have air filtration. We want to have twin engine applications. Instead of the head being in the bow of the boat, we want to put it up onto the deck. And of course, the whole time, like the Newton engineers are like, okay, yeah, this is a good idea, good concept. So at that point over time, Big Blue became a reality, and of course, once the boat was built, they reached back to us and said, "Can we use some of those design aspects in some of our future builds?" We were like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sure, why not? Go for it." So the boat, we got her finished. She was launched officially August of 2019. She got delivered out to Long Beach, and we ran trips out from Long Beach, California to Catalina. And of course, then COVID hit, and we had to deal with the whole debacle with COVID. And a year or so later, once we got back on our feet a little bit, things just weren't working out really well. And around that time frame, I was retiring from the military. Did 20 years Air Force, and you know,
Yeah, you just time for a transition in
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah. Well, at the time, we weren't even talking about bringing Big Blue here. Like we closed on the house, and it was interesting. We were bouncing all around Florida trying to find a place to live, and the house that we found here was in Panama City. My wife kept showing it to me. She's like, "This is kind of a perfect house. Look at this." And when I saw it, it's like, okay, I hit all the check marks. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the most important thing is like, oh, no HOA. This is great. Means I have a bunch of cars. I can work on stuff. Um, but we were like, okay, I guess we're going back to Panama City, and we knew the dive community, we knew people here, and it's like, why not? Let's go back here. Right after we closed on the house, Francesco called me up and he says, "Hey man, I went ahead and I let go of the captain and the crew on Big Blue. Things just aren't working out here. Boat's going to Florida, so you can take over it and you can run it." And I'm like, all right, great retirement job.
Yeah.
Can't beat that. So we started the process of kind of moving everything cross country for the following months and planning for the movement of Big Blue and starting the company here. And around the October time frame, right as I was kind of getting things situated, I reached out to Todd and said, "Hey, you need a charter operation there for red alert diving?" And he was like, "Yes, I do." And I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll bring this beautiful 36 Newton over to you and let you use that for your shop." And we got settled in, and one of the other things that I had in Vegas was I also had a dive shop called Blue Gravity, and I started Blue Gravity, so kind of working out like base housing. I had contracts with the military doing stuff there, with like teaching scuba for on the recreational level.
Now, uh, for folks that aren't super into technical diving and know all the ins and outs, Blue Gravity is mainly for technical diving specialty stuff, right?
Yes, I mean we accommodate it all,
Yeah.
but I really more of like your skills foundation, the fundamental skill sets, diver propulsion vehicles, mixed gas diving, so decompression diving, diver propulsion vehicles, like all those types of things, like the stuff that's more of your advance outside the realm of like
Yes.
your recreational realm, which of course we can accommodate all, but when we came here and partnered with Red Alert, it's like Todd does the recreational stuff and the professional development really really good, and
Yeah.
it's like that's his forte. And he was nice enough to give us a home, and I was like, everything on the recreational realm, you handle all that stuff, and it's allowed us to have this really good partnership, between the markets and being able to really offer everything to a diver from entry level basic stuff all the way to the most advanced levels of diving
Yep.
that exist, and having it kind of like a one shop stop where people walk in, they can get anything. They can pick up a snorkel for snorkeling, or they can get a trimix fill for a 250-foot dive. You know,
Yeah, and I try to explain to people the basic open water is only good to 60 feet.
yeah,
You get the advanced open water and you're good for about 120. And like when I've done nitrox and stuff before, I'm like, I don't really want to go much deeper than that for my own uh, desires. I know lots of people in the cave diving community and, other folks that do the technical dives and mix their own gases. I know folks from the military base and they do different stuff, but it's like I think it's so awesome that there's a shop that caters to the broadest range of divers, open water, 60 feet, and then you also got your specialty niches because it's like, man, um, I've really enjoyed a lot of my time diving here, spearfishing and exploring on different natural bottom and wrecks. And um, we also wanted to talk about the reefs because you are involved with the Warrior Memorial Reefs, and um, hopefully in some early later on episodes, we will be able to get maybe some county commissioners to talk about different stuff that we can do to help create more community for the dive community here in Bay County.
Have you seen the recent news of what's been going on within the dive community and the commissioners? What had took place very very recently with the United States?
That's why you're here to tell everyone.
So there's we actually kind of made some history this past week. There were some significant gains and huge things that occurred this week. We've been working a lot with the TDC. We did a deployment last year with the Deep Stem. There was a tri-county partnership between Bay, Okaloosa, and Walton County to be able to sink the Deep Stem. And with that partnership, kind of ushered in the next level of ship, which was the United States. And things have been kind of radio silence for a little bit, and we re-engaged with the county commissioners, re-engaged with the TDC, and said, "Hey, fellas, you probably take a look at this stuff. This is going to be the next big thing." So on Tuesday, when they had the meeting, the commissioners all agreed and approved the funding of $3 million towards the sinking and the deployment of the United States.
That's awesome news.
Huge news, which is going to put it within reach of our pass. So therefore, we can run to it here locally.
Very nice, because it's like the Warrior Memorial Reef. I knew actually one of my buddies when I first moved here, Gordon Villers, helped work on the original Sea Lab that's at the Man in the Sea Museum exhibit, and it is so nice to me because I want to get the Man in the Sea Museum folks here, Stan, I believe, and to see that history being preserved from folks that I knew when I first moved here, as an engineer and a former soldier that turned National Guard, and I love being a part of it and seeing it flourish and move on. So.
Well, that's one of the great things about diving here in Panama City too, is that all the shipwrecks are military in nature.
Yeah.
Everything was put down, in the 80s and the 90s and so on, and majority of the ships that we have out there are all, retired military ships. So we have a very, deep, history of military heritage that's here in Panama City, along with the diving aspect. I mean, one can actually say that diving almost kind of started here. This was like the original place with it because we have our NEDU here. We've got the dive lab. We have all of the new discoveries that are taking place are happening right here in Panama City when it comes to the industry. Now, to give you a little insight too, a little more in addition to what's coming, more so than just the United States, the deployment on that is we're working also with the county to set up a 3-mile by 3-mile square that's going to be within 6 miles of our pass. So I think the furthest corner is about 6 miles from our pass. So around the shipwreck, the Strength, the Red Sea, that area, those 2 shipwrecks will be within this area. And they're looking at building a veteran legacy memorial reef. That's that they're going to be putting down. And the plan is to have it to where kind of like a sundial design where you can put have like a center structured right in the middle, and then have each branch of service going out in either direction. So that allows a diver to be able to navigate to, if they wanted to go from Army or Air Force or Marines or Navy, and be able to have the different branches of service and go to those different locations and have structures related to, those service, like maybe have a concrete aircraft on the Air Force side, or a ship on the Navy side, or a tank on the Army side, And then one of the other things that they're working at doing is how to be able to tie in, being able to have the ceremonial deployments of, like, the remains of veterans and so on, their ashes there in that same area. If it's putting it into the concrete structures themselves and deploying them, or something along those lines. We had the opportunity in 2023, where I went down to the Neptune Reef, which is down in Miami, and they have a kind of like a legacy memorial reef, where they have different sculptures that they'll actually put the ashes, the human ashes, into, and they'll have like a ceremony there at the facility. They'll put all the ashes into it, mix it in with the concrete, and then they take the families out onto the boat, and then they deploy that concrete structure into this beautiful reef that's down on the bottom. Of course, it's all protected. I mean, divers
Yep.
can dive on it, but you can't like drop anchors or anything on it. But we had the opportunity to kind of visit that, dive it, and see, kind of how they do things, to give us a good idea on how we want to try to replicate that and expand that here in Bay County.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but I was part of the people organization trying to do something similar with the underwater gardens, pretty much. The Italian company does the Nemo's Garden, and you can find it on the web. But then Les Burke and the Marine Institute here, we were trying to get something similar going. And, me with my engineering background, I was working on the control systems and the power and the lighting. And it's just a fascinating project. Unfortunately, um, you know, there was a boater, I guess, shouldn't have been there, and they backed their prop into the dome, and uh, the project has just floundered since then. So, I mean, and I know, like with COVID and other things, there's always setbacks, but we got to just keep moving forward and to get these projects pushed through, because there's lasting legacy that will be left. Like anyone that's dove any structure out there, find within 6 months to a year, it's just covered in marine life. And I know as a diver, I've dove a spot that was supposed to have something, and there was a small piece of concrete about this big, and nothing but sand, as far as you can see. And it's like, yeah, that's it. That's most of underwater is a sand desert. And then when the structure goes in, it's like you're planting a forest almost. And you know, for um, Third ID at Fort Stewart, they started planting trees for the folks that died with us in Iraq. And then it was humbling going back and seeing how many more trees from when I got out in '06. I was back there in 2010 for some stuff. And then again, over the years, I've gone to Fort Stewart, and I've seen these trees go from small saplings and, you know, a dozen trees to a lot more. Um, and I think that's one of the important things with memorials, is to remember that it's not just, you know, one person or one thing. It's, all these people have made sacrifices for something. So that's why I always promote the Warrior Marines and stuff.
Oh, I mean, being a veteran myself, like I'm super, super excited. Like we're kind of on the same page with that. So I mean, it's going to be, pretty amazing once this project actually, takes flight, and we get things lined up and we start doing the actual deployments, and getting everything lined up. The county is very much engaged with wanting to accomplish this, and with the recent meeting that we had at the commissioners, with regards to the United States, one of the additional items that was brought up was future funding for additional projects here in Bay County. And I spoke with them afterwards, and they were very, very aggressive on this needs to happen. It needs to happen now.
That is
And it's
great.
not something like they were frustrated why it has fallen to the wayside for as long as it has. Um, and not to go into many details, but we were even talking about trying to, employ the 6-cent bed tax for the tourists coming in and so on, trying to find the funding for it. And one of the commissioners looked at me and says, "We have the money. We're going to make this happen." I'm like, "Okay, I'm good with that." I trust you guys on that one. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as long as we can move forward in a reasonable and responsible way, that's awesome news. Yeah.
And it's the big thing too is it's going to benefit all of our communities between the the fishing industry as well as the dive community.
And I know, it's so funny because you got into diving right about when I moved here, and then I was just diving all the time. I knew Todd from the dive shops, Pat. I remember when he was driving for boats for Tony, and then did his own thing. And it's like, um, you know, we probably would have met if you hadn't gotten transferred, because I started working at Tyndall right about the time you left, and then I joined the dive club. So we have like overlap between a bunch of the folks in the dive club, which I hope maybe I need to try and get some representative from the dive club to show up for the podcast. That would be great, because um, the dive club at Tyndall used to be one of the most awesome dive clubs. We had our own compressors, our ice, and I would go there. I would fill my tanks up on Monday, and then on Friday I'd get ice and I'd load up the boat. And Saturday we'd go out and
It's like $5 a month or something. Like was
oh,
the fees or something for to
it
be a club member.
it was like
Yeah.
I,
It's like less
the
than an air fill, and you get like unlimited air fills. As a,
the marina fill, and then that. And I mean, I- they haven't been collecting dues since the hurricane. And we went and tried to coordinate and pick through the rubble to find some more of those stainless steel fittings and other stuff. And then security forces came, and proper everything was crazy after the hurricane, and then COVID hit, and it's just seems like one of those things that just seems to be fading off the narrative of what used to be Tyndall. And I know Imbara, the Mexico Beach Reef Association, and a lot of the folks there got really frustrated with the not being able to get stuff launched. So they would go to Gulf County and launch more reefs out there, and they have some really nice ones. And I'm like, man, why can't we get that in Bay County? So I'm really excited that we're heading that direction.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, we're the future is very bright for sure when it comes to the artificial reef program here for Bay County. We've just put out 20 new reef structures
Yeah.
out in the Lars B section. Now, these are kind of like the big pyramid looking things. They're like a superstructure that's got like a pole coming out the top of it.
Hmm.
Not necessarily there's one every 2 miles, so it's not necessarily something that would be ideal for divers, but more for fishermen.
Yeah.
But it gives 20 spots out in the Lars B area for fishermen to go and start hitting a lot of those spots to be able to fish on. I know we have this like little rivalry between the dive community and the fishing community, but we all try to work together as best as possible, and kind of go for the fight for the same process or the same purpose to be able to go out there and recreate and enjoy the ocean.
Yeah. And we're going for the same goals to be able to enjoy it.
Yep.
And we need clean water and spots to go enjoy and see it, and good weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weather was definitely it was a rough season last year with weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
There's been a couple of seasons where it's weather and a couple seasons where it's other stuff. So
Yeah, frequent weather cancellations, which is never fun.
yeah,
We didn't do so well last year because of that. Hopefully this year will be better.
yeah, that's all we can do. Move on.